Welcome to the AA Podcast, our little corner of the web where we are not afraid to discuss tough questions like,
when did nutrition, health, movement, and stress management become alternative medicine?
Where we embrace challenges in all aspects of life to become healthier and stronger versions of ourselves.
And where food and movement are the best kinds of medicine, and cooking meals at home is a revolutionary act. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the AA Podcast. This is Ashley Olson.
And I'm Andrea Grain.
We are excited, as always, to come back with another episode this week. I hope that you guys have tuned into the last several weeks. We've had such amazing guests, and then we have dived again into another peptide. So definitely check those out if you are either new to the channel or to the podcast.
If you are new, where have you been?
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
you are late.
Yes.
And you have a lot of homework to do.
This is episode 80, Andrea.
Oh my gosh, are you serious?
Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy.
So if you're new, we start every episode with a Bible verse, and mine is coming from Isaiah 43:2, and it says, "When you pass through the waters, I will be with you, and through the rivers, they shall not overwhelm you. When you walk through fire, you shall not be burned, and the flame shall not consume you."
I almost stole that one from Ashley, but she would not let me have it. There's a Carrie Job song that goes along with those words, and it is extraordinary. But I digress. All right, so mine is coming from Psalm. It's 34:19. The righteous person may have many troubles, but the Lord delivers him from them all.
Love it. Well, today's episode is going to be a little different. I've only done this maybe a couple other times, but I'm going to be handing over the interview,
reins.
yes, to Andrea.
I am in charge.
Oh boy.
I've been waiting for this.
Yeah, I have no
Yeah,
words.
nobody in their right mind ever like consciously lets me be in charge. But today she has no choice because she is in the interviewee seat today.
Yes.
So yeah, we're gonna go through and you guys, I told her about half the questions that I was gonna ask. So we'll just see what she has to say here. We're gonna get to know Ashley Olson. And hopefully you guys can get to know her like I know her. This girl is so precious and dear to me. I can't imagine life without her. And so you are going to see what I see today and know a little bit more about her story and how she got where she is. And I will tell everybody who will listen about how crazy successful and amazing she is. And so we're going to go through all of that today. And I will be in charge of the questions. So yay me.
Oh gosh.
So hey Ashley, we're gonna specifically focus a little bit on your new business endeavor, which my gosh, I could not be more proud of you. This is the fulfillment of a lifelong dream, and actually we're going to talk about the genesis of that dream and how you got here, and you know, the things that you've had to overcome in getting to this dream and seeing its fulfillment. So but first, what I'd like to do is go all the way back, itty bitty Ashley, and I just want to people to know who you are. Where do you come from? Like, you know, how old are you? People don't know these things about us. So yeah, go for it.
Well, let's see. I was born in Santa Fe, New Mexico,
Ah,
which always
yes.
surprises folks. So most of my family still lives, or extended family lives in New Mexico still.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
hello, everyone that listens. Um, and so my parents are from New Mexico primarily. My mom, her dad was a pastor, and so my grandpa was a pastor, and
Mm-hmm.
they moved quite a bit, but they landed in New Mexico, and
Mm-hmm.
that's where my parents met. And so when they got married in 75, they lived in Santa Fe. My dad was working in
Mhm.
construction and always had a dream of being a pilot. And so
Mm. Mhm.
he
I
was,
love this story.
yeah,
Yeah.
his story, we should just have him on the
I
podcast.
know, we really should. Talk about following a dream. I
Yeah,
love it.
for real. So neither one of my parents have college educations. My dad was not in the military. He had to work uh, literally on both ends of the work schedule
Mhm.
of construction to build up all of his hours.
Yeah.
God truly blessed him, and his story is awesome. But
Mhm.
anyway, fast forward to 1985. They had me
Mhm.
in Santa Fe, and then when I was 2, they moved up to Colorado, Colorado
Mhm.
Springs. My dad got a job for a small company called Rocky Mountain Air, and that company got bought out by Continental Airlines. So
Mhm.
it's
Yeah.
a cool story. But anyway, so
Yeah.
I call Colorado home. I lived here until I was
Mm.
11. And back to my dad. His job, how the airlines work, you're based in a certain city, and unfortunately, Denver, he couldn't hold base here, and so we moved out east to Ohio for 6 years, and then
Mhm.
he was able to hold rank in Houston, and so I lived there for 4 years during college. I went to college down there.
Mhm.
Backpedal a little bit. My mom chose to homeschool both me and my
Mhm.
brother, and so I was homeschooled from literally day one,
Yep.
all the way through high school. I went through an accredited high school program, and so I hold a high school diploma, and I loved it. It was an
Yeah.
amazing experience. I know not everybody is built to homeschool their kids, but I highly recommend if you even have an inkling of
Mhm.
interest. There's so many. Actually, I was talking with some clients this morning. I was like, "There's so many great resources now." Like
Yeah.
my mom would be another great person to just talk to
Oh,
because
boy, yeah.
like, she
Hmm.
had to scrape from the ends of the barrel to know
Uh-huh.
how to teach us and what
Yeah.
curriculum to use. So anyway, super big shout out to my mom for all that she did. Huge blessing in my life.
Yeah.
But what all that really comes down to is like both of them had really good work ethic and just
Mhm.
the will and the gumption to just go for it and figure it out as you go. So
Yeah.
hopefully as my this interview and chat kind of goes about, you'll just kind of get the theme of you never know unless you try. And
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
that's
Hey, and tell everyone, so tell everyone what you studied in college,
yep.
and what that journey was like.
So my mom and dad's one requirement is that we had a degree, because they didn't have one, and so I basically drug my feet through college. I did not love it. Sorry, mom and dad. I barely probably should have graduated. To be honest, I'm not even kidding.
Aw.
I had a horrible GPA, but I studied business with a minor in management. I
Mhm.
will say in my last semester, I had to do some more elective classes and I took some marketing classes and I was like, oh man, I kind of like marketing.
Uh-huh.
And it was too late to change my minor. So I stuck with management because I was not about to extend any time. I was graduating in May. There was no
Right.
fall to graduation. I will
Ready
tell you
to
that.
get out.
So
Uh-huh.
that's what I studied. During college, I got a job in a bank, and so that was an amazing job for college. I was a teller, great hours and great opportunity to do homework, while at school and
Mhm.
stuff. So I loved that. And then after I graduated, I moved up to Wichita, Kansas, because me and my now husband were dating
Mhm.
long distance.
Okay, wait just a second. How old were you when you when you met your husband?
Oh, it's fine.
I love this. Oh,
So we officially met, I believe, when I was
I
14
think so.
in 1999.
Uh-huh.
I knew of him. He probably had no idea who I was. We met at youth camp. So his dad is also a pastor. Then my
Uh-huh.
grandpa was a pastor. And so we went to the same summer youth camp here in Salida, Colorado.
Uh-huh.
And so it was a week out of the whole 365 days
Uh-huh.
that I got to see Christian Olsen.
Uh-huh.
And so I knew of him, and then we started chatting like at camp maybe in 2020 or sorry 2000 2001, and then um we were AOL Instant Messenger, dial up internet, baby. And
Uh,
so we started dating long distance in 2004, so second semester of college.
mhm.
And so I traveled because of my dad's job. I was able to get on standby flights and fly up to Wichita. There was a Continental
Mm,
Express flight that uh, ran from Houston to Wichita. And
mhm.
so I saw him in person, every maybe 4 to 6 weeks. And we did that through
Mm,
college. And then once I graduated, of course, madly in love college
mhm.
student, I moved up to Wichita, Kansas. And I lived there for 7 years. I was in banking initially. So I got a job in the mortgage department of a bank, a local bank there in Wichita.
Uh-huh.
And basically, I was a mortgage collector. Like,
Uh,
I went
oh.
through the 2007, 2008 mortgage crisis.
Oh
Eh,
gosh.
So I was
I
calling
didn't
up
know that.
people. Yep, I was calling
Oh.
up people saying, Is there any way that you can pay your mortgage? Like, literally
Ashley,
begging
I
them.
cannot see you having the
Oh, it was
stomach to be able to do that.
horrible. I had
Oh,
list after list, and it was gut wrenching, and so
yeah.
I was like, "Oh my gosh, these people, like, they literally have nothing, and I'm taking their house away." And I feel
Uh,
super dirty. So that job only lasted about 6 months, and
I
then
imagine.
I went over to another local bank, and I loved that job. I was in their wealth management department, so completely other end of the spectrum.
Wow. Okay.
So,
Okay.
these
Things
people
are
had multiple houses,
right.
people managing their
Uh,
money,
right.
but I worked as a assistant to the vice president of the wealth management department,
Okay.
and I helped with the marketing of the wealth management
Cool.
department. So that was really fun. And then basically, I was in banking, and then I transitioned, worked for another bank as the executive assistant of the president for a small community bank, and then I transitioned over to academia,
Mhm.
and I was the executive assistant for the dean of engineering. Also, a job that I truly loved, and long story not short, the dean changed, and um, he basically made life miserable. This
Mm,
was the beginning of when I started. So I was introduced into fitness. I was
mhm.
not a kid I was always outside. I always loved to be outside. I loved riding my bike. My dad would go for runs, and I tried to run. So I hated running from the get go. But I would ride my bike with my dad while he ran.
Mhm.
And I like to do stuff. I mean, I loved working hard. So me and my family, we were able to purchase a horse as a kid while living in Colorado, and we to be able to afford um, a stable rent. That's not what it's called, but
Like
stable
boarding
space.
fees.
Yeah, boarding
Mhm.
fees, thank you.
Mhm.
Um, we literally mucked out stalls and fed the horses and walked them and did
Mhm.
all the things. So I was never afraid of hard work in that regard. But I never had a fitness necessarily mindset. But then when I was 26,
And
um,
so 26,
yep,
married in
yep,
Wichita, for those of you following along at home.
oh yes,
She's working at the university.
yep.
And then also, this is her kind of entree into fitness.
Yeah, and so we got married when we were 24, and so about a year in, I say, I joke that I started putting on that, happy marriage life weight. And so I didn't love how my clothes were fitting. And so I didn't know what to do. And so at the time, there was a new running store opening up in Wichita. And so I was like, well, I can run. Like, it's
Mhm.
free. And they had free group running every Saturday. So that's where I started. And so then I had a goal of running a half marathon. I did a half marathon.
Crazy.
And then I kind of sort of kept up with running with another girlfriend, but just I was always in pain, always had injuries.
Mhm.
And so a friend of mine introduced me to come and invited me to come with her to try a all women's boot camp. And so this friend, she literally did not work out. Like she when she told me she was doing this, I was like, "Oh, well, I have to join it because I have to know why you're interested in it." And so I started that, and that was probably the first time I truly ever lifted in an organized
Mm.
fashion. So this
Mhm.
wasn't your typical boot camp. It wasn't like running drills or anything. You still had some cardio aspects, but she literally taught you how to lift, and I fell in
Mhm.
love. And so probably for 2, 3 years, I continued on my own journey. I was, like, drinking from a water hose, so I started a
Yeah.
small group with the same trainer. I did the boot camps, and then, I just literally figured out and asked a ton of questions for her and then got on the internet. Instagram
Mhm.
wasn't even really around, I don't think, at that point.
Yeah.
And so I just started researching and figuring out, okay, what's weightlifting? And, I found the
Mhm.
Windler 5x5 and I started doing in the 5x5 program. And so
Mm.
there's a journey that you just start, playing around with different things, but I just loved working out.
Mhm.
And then I kind of got other friends to join me at the gym. We'd meet, I think 3 times a week, my mother-in-law, another girl, a couple other girls. Basically, I
Uh-huh.
started my own small group,
Yep.
um,
You
and we would go and, work out in the morning, and then I'd get dressed at the YMCA there in Wichita and then go to the university for work. And, so
mm.
I did that for a while, and once the dean changed, and was making life miserable, that's when the trainer that I was with, she was like, "Hey, have you ever considered personal training?" And I was like, "No, I'm not smart enough for that, like, there's no way." And so she probably hounded me and begged me for about a year to do it, and things got so bad at the university that I was like, "Hey, I if I can pass this exam,
Mhm.
then we can talk." And so I joke that it's the first textbook I've ever read. I think I literally read every page of it.
Oh,
I
yeah.
loved everything about it, and so it was an in-person weekend course at the university, actually,
Mhm.
um, and so I did that, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I think I found a passion." And so, still being cautious and optimistic and, uh, all the things, took it was perfect timing, everything I think
Mhm.
is always, in the
Yep.
grand plan, right? But,
Right.
there was a position at the university for a part-time assistant, and it
Mm.
was very flexible hours. I could do a lot of it from remote if I needed to,
Mhm.
and so I took that position and then started with my first client, and shout out to Natalie Mueller, she was my first
Oh,
client
Natalie.
ever.
Yes.
And, we had lots of fun, and then from there, like, it just started growing, like, I was just like
Mhm.
within 6 months, I was full with clients. I think I had by 6 months, I probably had 30 clients, and there was no way that I could keep this part-time job at the university.
Mm.
And so I think I was only at that job for 6 months and went full time, and I was telling Andrea before this, I remember that feeling that I had
Mhm.
when I was trying to make the decision of, do I stay at the university with a secure, quote, unquote,
Mhm.
"paycheck and benefits," or do
Mhm.
I make this leap into running my own business? And,
It's
uh, it's
terrifying.
so terrifying. I can feel the feeling that I had in my
Yeah.
chest. It was
Yeah.
like, am I doing this? And so obviously, I did, and it was one of the best decisions I've ever made, and it really
And everything
opened.
was easy and everything worked out
Yeah,
beautifully,
I
and
mean,
you never had any struggle, did you?
exactly.
Right.
It was just meant to be. If something's
Right.
meant to be, there will be no struggles.
Right, of course. Yeah, squarely tongue in cheek, you guys,
Yeah,
there have been struggles.
for sure. And then, so I was having a thriving business, and
Mhm.
Christian's like, "Hey, I think we should move to Colorado," and I was like, "What?" I was like,
Screech.
I
What?
legit just started my business. I'm thriving. Like, what are we doing?"
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so
Well, and so what you may not know if you don't know Ashley personally is that she and her husband are both like super super active people. They're very much mountain people living in the plains of Kansas. And so it's I come from Kansas too and have a deep deep and abiding love for that state. Um but Colorado is a fantastic place to recreate, and when you're all about outdoor activities, it's pretty hard to beat.
yeah, and so we just kind of realized like, hey, every vacation, every opportunity, we're always in Colorado. Why don't we just live
Mhm.
where we want to vacation, and
Mhm.
then we can vacation else other places and
Mhm.
explore different opportunities. So he was able to get a job that moved us out there, and so I was because I was so fresh out of the university, I was able to find another part-time job at CU Boulder as an
Mhm.
administrative assistant to a director of a program. And so I got that job, and I was there from 2015 to 2019. So
Mhm.
almost 4 years. She was amazing. She allowed me to be very flexible even though she
Mhm.
wanted more stringent hours, but I was basically able to work in the middle of the day where when clients aren't as active. So I was able
Well,
to
yeah,
build my
and I
schedule.
what I really want people to understand is that like with the kind of training that she's talking about, it's not like you can pick up your business and then come and bring it somewhere else, like literally across state lines, and pick up where you left off.
Yep.
This is starting from the ground. And I'll just tell you something about Ashley. So we were kind of laughing about this earlier. So if you were to put both of our sine waves on a graph, Ashley's amplitude, she is steady, man. She the not too high highs, not too low lows. She is just steady going. And she will always achieve a goal, and she is always moving forward, and she doesn't let anything get in her way. Me on the other hand, mine goes way into the stratosphere, and then it goes way into the basement, and then way into the stratosphere. And but that's what I'm saying this because she kind of glosses over it, but she literally started from nothing, coming out to Colorado, not knowing a soul,
Yep. So
and start over.
yeah,
Mhm.
so I got the job with CU Boulder, but
Mhm.
at the same time, I was looking for a gym to train out of.
Mhm.
And so me and my girlfriend had already had a weekend trip planned to come to a Broncos game beginning of November. I was in the midst of getting our house ready to sell in
Mm.
Wichita. My mom was another godsend and came out and helped me for like 2 weeks to get this house
Mm.
ready.
Mhm.
And so I came out to Colorado and used that trip to go to a gym that I thought was going to be it. And I was super
Mhm.
excited. I walk in and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is not it. Like this is so bad." It was
What
so
was bad about
dirty.
it?
It was
Oh, okay.
so dirty. It was
Mhm.
so clustered with just equipment everywhere. There was no
Mm.
rhyme or reason with anything.
Mhm.
And then I meet the owner, and he basically thinks he's God's gift to mankind. Takes me
Mm.
back to his office where he has the Denver cheerleaders, all
Oh
pictures
my.
everywhere, and he says, "Well, this is my clients." And so
Oh,
I was like, "Okay, we are not
that's
the
not gonna work.
same. Like,
Nope.
I don't think we're vibing." So, um at that time, we knew exactly we had found a townhouse that we were gonna rent, and so
Uh-huh.
it was, so I was just looking in that vicinity, and
Yeah.
so that's when I stumbled upon Active Lab
Yay.
from a Google search, and they had literally just opened that October, and I found them that November.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
like,
Yeah.
it was all
Yep.
meant to be,
Yeah.
and so I, met with Dustin and Morgan.
Mhm.
I think I only met with
Yay.
Dustin first. He made me put him through like a sample workout. I apparently passed. um, and
Oh.
then but they were brand new. They didn't have
Mhm.
clients to feed me,
Yeah.
and so I basically was like figuring out how to, and I didn't know anybody in Colorado, really.
Yeah.
And so basically had to figure out how to get clients. And so
Mhm.
I used some tools and some apps, and I did get a client. And then by I think January, they were able to feed me like a client. So I was starting to get some momentum.
Uh-huh.
And then I started the all women's boot camps.
Yep.
So I'd have to go back, and I'm really bad with timelines, but I'd have to go back and see when that first one ran. But I think I had 3 ladies. One
Mhm.
was a friend, the other one, and then the other 2, I don't even remember where they came from. But I had 3 ladies, and
Mhm.
we had amazing time. It was a 12-week boot camp, and then I would run, have a couple weeks off, and then I'd run another 12 weeks. And I think by then I had maybe 6 ladies, and then just
Mhm.
slowly building up that momentum, getting people to know
Mhm.
me, and it's that whole like no trust factor, right,
Right.
in marketing.
Yeah.
And so I just slowly started to build up my clientele, and obviously it was slow because I kept my part-time job for 4 years almost, and
Now, Ashley, speak to this because there is a I think there are some people who come into entrepreneurship and think, well, I need to be all in. Like I need to, you know, toss everything else to the side, and if I'm going to make it, then I'm going to make it and I'm going to jump in full time. So
mhm.
speak to this this idea of the slow and steady nope, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this debt free, right? A la Dave Ramsey,
Yes.
and I'm going to have this part-time job. And yeah, can you talk about the importance of that mindset a little bit?
Well, I mean, really, we had no other choice for me other than to have a
Mhm.
steady paycheck.
Mhm.
So I had to have something that was somewhat steady, but at the same time,
Well, now you say you had to. You didn't have to. You could have gotten a bunch of credit cards and you
oh,
could have
true. Yep.
financed life on credit.
Yep.
And so there's always a way to go into debt for things, especially in the culture that we live in right now.
Yeah.
But that was a decision that you and Christian made.
Right.
Mhm.
So, we and I'll be totally honest, we were not debt free when we moved out here, but we did get debt free.
Mhm.
But however, I there when you're working towards something,
Mhm.
especially when it comes to like an entrepreneurial type job, and you don't really have traction yet,
Mhm.
especially in a brand new city potentially, like I was.
Yeah.
I think that there's something to be said, and I think a lot of business people that I find reputable also say this, that it's actually a good thing to have some type of job that you're having some steady income in.
Mhm.
And I do believe that it is a wise choice for a lot of people to do that,
I do too.
because the worst thing that can happen is that you're getting super discouraged as a business owner when things aren't moving as quickly as you feel like they should.
Mhm.
And then on top of that, like you mentioned, you're just going into farther and farther dark hole of debt.
Mhm.
And then, that can put so much strain in so many other aspects of your life.
Right.
And so it's okay to have, and Dave Ramsey talks about this too, like run pizzas.
Right.
Like it does not
Yeah,
have to
exactly.
be an office job. It can be a little scrappy, but
Yeah.
like don't be afraid to put in the hard work that's not necessarily always in your business.
Mhm.
Like make sure that you have some type of something that you can always fall back on.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure.
Um, so yeah, so I was at the university for 4 years, and then
Mhm.
I finally left there, I believe in June of 2019, and had an
Mhm.
amazing client base that just just
Yeah, you sure
you know.
did.
So it was awesome. And so I ended up training at Active Lab for 10 years.
Crazy.
Yeah, it just flew by so fast. Actually, it was almost 10 years, almost to the day.
Mm.
And so they are an amazing if you're in Broomfield. Active
Lots
Lab
of
is
great stories start at Active Lab.
oh yeah. And
Yeah.
the owners are amazing. The trainers there
Mhm.
are amazing. It's a really really standing spot. So if you're in the Broomfield area, definitely check them out if you're looking for a trainer.
Yeah,
Um,
special place.
but I mean, so if you- so yeah, that's and then Christian and I bought a place in Evergreen 2.5 years ago, and we knew we needed to renovate our house. So you know starting again, I
Mm.
kept going down to Broomfield for
Yeah, how long
two
was
and a
that
half.
commute?
It was 50 minutes in the
Down a
morning.
mountain, literally down the mountain. Yes.
Yeah, 50
Mhm.
minutes down the mountain, and then sometimes an hour and a half home, depending on
Yeah.
traffic. So it was a lot of
Yeah.
time in the car. Which I mean, blessing and a curse. Like you get
Yeah.
a lot of podcasts in, or a lot
That's
of
right.
other things. So
Yeah.
quiet time too. I
Mhm.
drove a lot of times in the quiet.
Yep. Yeah. So you were driving down to Active Lab, and then and you had this literally this incredible full schedule
Hmm.
of boot camps and personal training sessions and just and everything in between. And so you were tell everyone what your next venture was that was a little bit closer to home.
Yeah. So so we moved here 2.5 years ago,
Uh-huh.
and we were renovating our house, and then we finally finished the first phase of it. And through a Bible study, I'd met some people, and one of the ladies reached out to me and said, "Hey, me and my husband really need to get going on our health and fitness.
Mhm.
Really want to train with you. Are you training somewhere up here?" And I was like, "Well, no, but hey, give me a couple weeks and let
Mhm.
me see what I can figure out."
That's my girl.
So
Yep.
I reached out to. There's not very many places here in Evergreen for
Uh-huh.
personal training. So I reached out to the ones that I could find, and
Yeah.
only one of them came back. And so
Mhm.
I started training. So she would. It ended up being just as her, another lady, maybe even two other ladies. I can't remember.
Mhm.
That we started a small group at this gym, and it was a public. It was a privately owned but public gym, so it just wasn't the atmosphere that I was basically spoiled at with Active
Mm.
Lab, whereas
Mhm.
only one-on-one or small group training
Right.
was not open to memberships. And so it just started really making the wheels turn. And
Mhm.
I realized there was a need for a space that women specifically could come
Mhm.
to and train, not worry about like who else was there, if it was going to be
Mhm.
busy, or maybe equipment wasn't going to be available,
Mhm.
and a clean space, and just somewhere that a community could be built. And so
Well, and let me have you back up a little bit because I've known you almost 10 years now, and I know that you and your husband we've talked about this, that the idea of having your own place to train people, that has percolated over some period of time.
it has. And if as a kid, so funny story. As a kid, I always said I wanted to be a store, and my mom was like, she finally figured it out. I just wanted to be a cash register because I liked hitting the buttons, and scanning things.
Uh-huh.
I always wanted to be a store. And
Uh-huh.
so, when I first started personal training, there was no real need, especially in Wichita. There's a
Mm.
ton of gyms.
Mhm.
There was no need that I had or felt, and I didn't feel like I had enough experience under my belt as an entrepreneur to justify
Mhm.
having my own space. And then when we moved to Colorado, Active Lab was just absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
And but because we knew we wanted to live in the mountains more, and me commuting an hour plus each way was not going to be feasible long term,
Mhm.
the idea of having our own space definitely started building.
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
when I started getting clients here in Evergreen, and it really kind of took off faster than I thought, and
Uh-huh.
my real hindrance was that I didn't have enough space, and I was
Yeah.
commuting 3 days a week down the hill, and so it just wasn't conducive to building a client base here in Evergreen.
Mhm.
And so, um because of the commute, because of everything with this interest of training with me, um, Christian and I had originally seen a space available when we first moved here, and we both made a comment like, "Hey, that'd be an amazing little studio to start. Like, it's just
Mm.
perfect."
Yeah.
And so again, we were in the depths of renovating our house, and it just was not the right time. Well, we finished our house the first phase of our house last, I think it was July or August,
Mhm.
and the space that we originally saw 2.5 years ago popped up again, and we're like, "Should we go look at it?" And I was like, "Well, there's no harm in her looking, like,
Of course.
you can always go look and,
Right.
you can always see." And so we walked in and we both immediately, like, were just like, "Holy crap, this is it." Like,
Uh-huh.
this is perfection for what we need to start with. And so, I believe I'd have to go back. So we signed our lease in the beginning of September. They allowed us to get the place ready all of September and October.
Mhm.
Again, I'm really bad with timelines, but I officially started training my current Evergreen clients in November.
Mhm.
Well, because people were so excited about the space, they were posting it on Instagram, and so I started getting a lot of inquiries, and so I started
Mhm.
building my clients again here in Evergreen with the days that I was available from not being down
Mhm.
the hill. And then I did a grand opening in January, and after that grand opening, it was just like, oh, I can't do both. Like,
Mhm.
this is gonna blow up. And so, and again, perfect timing.
Yeah.
A trainer that I had known online for the past, I think, 4 years, had moved to Colorado
Mm.
last June or July. And she actually was training at Active Lab, but I had no idea because we didn't have the same schedule. And then finally, I think Active Lab like posted one of her things, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, it was that Madison that started here." I didn't realize it was her. And so I reached out to her, and back, say November, I finally met her, I think in December in person.
So weird.
And then she was like she loves the mountains too. And so she's like,
Mhm.
"Are you thinking you want trainers up there?" And I was like, honestly, I don't know yet. Like, I'm still figuring out everything. But anyway, she was able to take over all of my clients in Broomfield. Like,
Mhm.
it
Mhm.
it was just it was a blessing for her, but it was a true blessing for me because it
Yeah,
was
you literally turned over the keys to a business, to a functioning business, over to someone that was getting started,
yeah.
and you were able to bless them unbelievably, and then start over again yourself up in this new space. And
Mhm.
so Carve was born. So
Yeah.
so tell us about what you're doing up there. What is this?
So Carve is a private fitness studio. It
Mhm.
is women only.
Uh-huh.
And I really focus and specialize in small groups. And so my small groups are 6 or less women, and they are basically a private training session with a shared cost of
Mm.
sharing a trainer. So you are getting to learn how to lift. You're getting to learn, and by lift, I mean we're working with a barbell. We're working on how to achieve that lean muscle mass growth that is so vital for women, especially
Mhm.
as we age. And if you're new to the podcast and you're like, I don't know what that means, go back to several of our episodes, and we talk about the importance of having lean muscle mass. one, especially as women, but everybody
Mhm.
needs it as we age. It is a catalyst of making sure that you age more gracefully.
Mhm.
And so throughout my training career, I've always had a passion for teaching women how to lift and be confident in lifting, especially when people are going to a public gym, because the biggest deterrent for most women is they get into the gym. There's usually a bunch of high
Mm.
schoolers or gym bros, and it's
Yeah.
intimidating. And
Yeah.
yeah, there's women in there too now, and I think it's become a lot more popular. But some of these women are like super jacked, and they know what they're doing, and so it's like very intimidating. And so then you revert back to what you know, and that's getting on the elliptical or the stairmaster or the treadmill and running and becoming, that cardio bunny again. and
Mhm.
and you just are so intimidated to step foot into the weight room. And that's
Mhm.
something that I've always had a passion in teaching women to be able to do, is know what they're working, why they're working it, and how to really get strength and both in the muscle but also in the
Mm.
mind.
Mhm.
And we work a lot on mindset as well, and making sure that, hey, the way we approach even our lifting sessions, how are we thinking about them? How are we just going through the motions, or are we actually putting some mental effort into it? So I'm really proud of the system that I've built here at Carve, and we really focus on progressive overload, which is just a
Mhm.
fancy term of making sure that over time we're challenging the body and the mind and the muscles, to keep growing and getting better range of motion, and you know putting being able to figure out what does pushing myself actually look like.
Mhm.
Because a lot of times women will be like, "Oh, that's hard," and I was like, Was it?" Because when I see it, like, you
Yeah.
probably had
Mm.
5 plus more reps than you, and they're like,
Mhm.
"Oh, probably." And so it's like, okay,
Yeah.
well, if I told you, like, and go back to our episode on progressive overload and RPE, but, if I told you on an RPE scale of 1 to 10, if I wanted you to hit a 9, how
Mhm.
many reps would that take? And so they're like, "Oh, well, I probably could do like 25 or 30 of this weight." And I was like, "Okay, let's figure out, like, if we can keep good form and good control, then let's bump up
Mhm.
that weight and see what that feels like." So
Mhm.
it's teaching women how to really be confident that it's okay to lift heavy,
Yeah.
and that you're not going to look like a man when you leave your
Yep. That's right.
yeah.
That's right. No, I love it. And so what what you're able to do and what you've done throughout your whole career, like the thread that goes through all of these things, is that Ashley is a community builder. And she's very humble and speaks with a lot of humility, and like no fanfare in discussing what she's been able to do. But I and those of you who know anything about the personal training space, you know that the barriers to entry for this particular profession are not super high. It's not difficult to go out and get that training certification.
It's
It's
not even required.
yes, it's not even required. You can literally hang a shingle and call yourself a personal trainer. And so it is a crowded space. And so for someone to be able to not just make a living but to thrive, she may make it look easy, but it is not easy. And so yeah, it's a crowded space, and she has risen to the top, and I just could not be more proud of everything that she's done and everything that she has worked so hard for. And she sacrificed a lot, and she sacrificed her time, and she sacrificed her ambitions in other areas to make this dream come true. And I just wish you absolutely 100,000% of everything, girl. I
Thanks.
just am so proud of what you've done.
I appreciate that. Yeah, it's been a journey, and
Mhm.
um, with everything, even if you are in a quote unquote typical job, um, there's always going to be challenges, and
Mhm.
there's always going to be opportunity for growth. And I think the biggest thing that I've learned, because so over the almost coming up on 11 years of getting my certification and my
Mhm.
initial certification. I I am not the person that I was,
Right.
and every opportunity has made me a new version, and I hope, it's always a better version of who
Mhm.
I was and
Mhm.
who I was always meant to be. And whenever you're starting out on something new, it's gonna be scary. It's not
Right.
gonna be something that's feels super secure at first necessarily, and that's okay. There are ways that you like we talked about me having a part-time job to get started. There are ways that you can have somewhat of a security blanket, if you will,
Mhm.
but if you don't take that leap and just try, you'll never know what you're capable of. And there's always going to be excuses. There's always going to be things
Right.
like, well, I probably need to have what XYZ before I can do this. And it's like, do you like, is that something that actually is required by like legal
Mhm.
standards, or is that just
Mhm.
something that somebody told you that you needed?
Right.
For
Right.
example, I was getting uh, I had just quit my CU Boulder job in
Mhm.
2019, and guess what happened in 2020? The world shut
Yeah.
down.
Yeah,
And my
exactly.
and I l as a personal trainer, you're not paying into unemployment. You're not paying into
Right.
anything. And so, I literally went from 100 to 0,
Mhm. Yeah.
and it required me to dig myself out of a depressive hole after the
Yeah.
2 weeks that they said they promised us,
Right. Mhm.
um,
And to
and
pivot.
and to pivot and be like, "How can I grow an online presence?" I started
Mhm.
a free group of workouts, daily workouts in a Facebook group, and that got super popular, and then when I was slowly starting to be able to get back into the gym, it kind of made me realize, "Oh, maybe I do need an online presence because in person's never guaranteed." And so, of course, what does the internet feed you? The exact same
Mhm.
thing that if you're not a successful online, you're basically better not be a trainer. And so
Right.
I basically had this mindset like, well, I need help because I don't know how to grow online. And I was really
Mhm.
struggling in that. So, imposter syndrome from being
Yeah.
fed all these, lies from these accounts was that you have to have a business coach in order to be successful. And so I hired several business coaches,
Mhm.
and all of them were horrible. I have literally no good things to say, and I know people have good experiences. I'm not bashing every single business coach out there,
Right.
but,
Right.
um, it was one of those lies that I started to tell myself that, well, I am not successful online, so
Mhm.
should I even be doing this anymore? And
Mhm.
so if you're out there thinking, "Oh, I need to have XYZ before I can be validated in the space,"
Mhm.
that's just a lie that you're believing right now.
Right. Right.
Unless it's absolutely required to
Mhm.
function as a business, like, you're holding yourself back.
Yeah, exactly. I love that message so much. And more often than not, I mean, we always need to ask ourselves, and this is straight from Ken Crane. This is one of my husband isms. He always is asking the question, "Qui bono?" Who benefits? And so if you look at the business trainers, and I'm not saying that there is no place for this industry, but there certainly is not as big of a footprint as what it currently exists.
Yeah.
And a lot of times when you look at who's really benefiting from this, well, is it the people being trained? No, they are having their resources extracted from them. And those are resources that could go into making their businesses flourish, into the creation of a business plan, into marketing and advertising. And instead, they are, splashing it out the door for advice that, frankly, I'm sorry, you could get on YouTube.
Yep.
And so I know I'm not naive. I know that there's marketing connections that get made, but there are all kinds of ways to engage in guerrilla marketing and to get your message out there. So yeah, I love that. I love what you said. It's you are the one standing in your own way.
Mhm. Yeah. And you'll never know unless you try.
Right,
Is
exactly.
and I've always lived by the motto of, like, the worst that they can say is no.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
so I go into that approach, um, with trying something new within my business
Yeah.
too. Like, you'll
Mhm.
never know what people might want unless you
Yeah.
put it out there.
Yeah.
And some things are gonna stick. Some things are gonna be like, "Nope, that was not
Yeah.
it. That was
That
definitely not
didn't
it."
work. Yep.
Yeah, but at least you
Yeah.
tried, and
Yep.
with every opportunity to try something, you'll
Mhm.
always come out some benefit, and maybe
Exactly.
that's just a lesson learned, and
Yeah.
those lessons learned are what will shape your future for other opportunities.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
yeah, and Carve, I'm super proud of it. It's the community that it's brought has been so fun,
Yeah.
and it's just been amazing to meet the women that are here in this pretty small town of Evergreen,
Mhm.
and just how much they have. It's been a space that has allowed them to explore a part of their training and health journey that
Uh-huh.
some didn't know that they wanted or needed, and
Yeah.
that's what's really fun and exhilarating for me.
Yeah, I love that. Well, okay, so I have to know you're not spelling carve correctly. And so where did this come from?
So
How do you spell it and what's the significance?
so Carve is Karve.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And, to be honest, I was browsing Pinterest, and
Yeah.
I came across it, and I was like, "Oh, that is it." Like, that
I
is
love it.
so we were actually just gonna just simply name it Raven.
Which I
Um,
also liked.
yes, it's my dog's name,
Uh-huh.
and so we were kind of playing around with it. So my husband is in the marketing field, and so, you want a strong letter. So
Yes.
a strong letter is usually like an R.
Uh-huh.
Um, what is the other ones? Probably a K. I don't know.
A T is
Uh,
probably
it's
strong.
probably a T.
Yeah.
There's just some very strong first letter
Okay.
names.
Okay.
And so that's how my original Colorado business became Revolt, is because of the
Okay.
R. And I was like, okay, Revolt, like, you're revolting against the norm, like you're going
Right.
against the grain, you know. Um, but when I saw
Very edgy. Very edgy.
Carve, I was like, "Oh, that is cool.
Uh-huh.
I
Yeah.
like it."
Yeah.
And, if you know me, I'm very, I would say I'm not minimalistic, but
Oh, you
I'm
have an aesthetic. You have a very particular aesthetic, and you know it when you see it. Mhm.
thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. No, I can walk into a space and I'm like, "This is Ashley Olsen."
Yeah.
This
So,
and it's awesome. It is
yeah.
minimalist, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It has some strong masculine tendencies, I would say, and
Yeah.
but also some
Yeah, for
femininity in it.
sure. For
But,
sure.
so when I saw Carve, it just felt very strong and powerful, and then
Uh-huh.
when I looked it up, has Scandinavian roots, and so
That's
if
crazy.
you obviously know Olsen, it is
Mhm.
definitely a Scandinavian name,
Yep.
and we're SON, which is Sweden, and then SEN is Norwegian.
Mm. 'Kay.
So, carve is a type of Scandinavian boat used by the Vikings for
Mm.
exploration and trade.
Uh-huh.
And so, and it was it was very versatile. It was capable of
Yeah.
navigating, through the tough waters, and very
Mhm.
reliable. And I was
Love
like,
it.
that just literally speaks to what I want my space to be.
Yeah.
Exploring new ways of your health and fitness journey. It's reliable
Mhm.
because, I pride myself into trying to keep everything that we do here not as a fad, but as something that is scientifically backed with, you know, research, and
Mhm.
that is showing like this is what research is showing that is beneficial, especially for women,
Mhm.
especially middle-aged women, making
Right.
sure that we're doing all the things we're, weight training we've known is good, but why? And so
Right.
building that strength, building that resilience, building that confidence. So the name Carve just kind of embodied everything that I was seeking to create in a space.
Yeah. No, I love it. And so, for those of you playing along at home, you probably heard at the beginning that Ashley was born 1985. And if you do a quick calculation, you will realize this is a big year for her. So
Yep.
so with that looming, can you are there, as you've grown in your training and as you've grown as a woman and as you're in your own physicality and facing the 40s, is there are there any changes that you've made in terms of training women? Like, what do you look like as a trainer now that is different than when you first began?
So many things.
So many things.
Uh,
Yeah.
so, I remember when shout out to any of my past clients that started with me. God bless you. It was all about variety and making sure it's
Mm.
always interesting, and, making sure
Mhm.
every workout was so different. And now you will come into Carve and you'll realize, oh, we repeat a lot of things. There's a
Mhm.
lot of repetitions with the workouts. And when I first started this a few years ago with my down the hill clients, I was really afraid that they would think I was just a cheap trainer. and,
Uh-huh, yeah.
and that, well, she just wants to program once and be good. And it's
Mm,
like, well, no, that's
no.
actually that it's actually necessary for you
Right.
to get the aesthetic and the strength that you're wanting to
Yeah.
have repetition. So that comes back to the science backed training philosophy that I
Mhm.
have. And so I've really grown in that.
Yeah.
And instead of, having Pinterest saved worthy workouts, now they're pretty boring, they're not what
Yeah.
they're not what are getting the clickbaits, if you will.
Right,
And
right.
so, but I truly believe that my clients are seeing the difference, and they feel the difference, and they're excited every week to say, "Oh my gosh, I did better
Mm,
than last week." Or, "Oh
mhm.
my gosh, at the beginning of the month I was only doing this, but now I feel so great." And so I've grown in that. I've to put it in simple terms, I've grown confident in my
Mhm.
ability and my knowledge of structuring a workout. And then, just as a person, I look back at my 24-year-old self that just got married, and I was not confident. I was seeking validity, you know,
Mhm.
primarily from my husband.
Mhm.
I needed his, accolades to be able to pursue or want to do things.
Mhm.
Um, I I felt that, having a large circle of friends was a representation of a successful life.
Okay, yeah.
And as I've gotten older, especially with 2020, um, I just have really grown to realize that small is better,
Mhm. Mhm.
and that I've learned to look at Christian, my husband, in a such a different way. He's such a partner. He's such a great cheerleader for me. Like,
Mhm.
all of these things that I've done in my business. Yes, Andrea says, I'm the one that's uh made them happen. And yes, I have done the work, but it hasn't come from not having the support of an amazing
Right.
spouse. And I
Yeah.
know Andrea can say the same about Ken.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so, like, just finding a new love for somebody,
Mhm.
because that's the biggest thing that I've hear people say is like, oh, well, we're growing to be different people, and so we're just no longer compatible. And to be honest, I think that's just a laziness on both
Mm.
on both
Mhm.
parts, is not being able to grow and reflect and see how, yes, you are totally different people. I am not the person Christian
Yeah.
married. I am
Yeah.
not. And he is not the husband I married. Like,
Right.
and I don't want the husband that I married, and he
Right.
doesn't want the wife he
Right.
married, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, but you've learned to really be like, oh my gosh, like you can love and appreciate them in a new way.
Yeah.
And so, shout out to Christian if he ever listens
Yeah.
to this.
He doesn't, and neither does Ken, and that's
He'll
okay.
look at it and be like, "That's way too long. I'm not listening to that."
I know.
But then he'll go and listen to, like, a Joe Rogan
Oh,
podcast.
yes. Oh, I know.
Whatever.
I know. Yep.
No, like, as I've grown older, I just realized I find more joy in the simplicities.
Mhm. Yeah. No, I really appreciate that, and I was telling Ashley before we hit the record button, I was like, "Okay, listen, I want you to be transparent. I want you to be vulnerable. I want you like let's really crawl around in there and so people can get to know you like I know you.
You're welcome.
And this is the girl that I love and that I am just so proud to be there, front row seat to what she's doing, and gonna make me cry with the vulnerability here. But yeah, that's that I appreciate that, and I know our listeners do too. Just getting to know you and getting to know what your story has been like, and that it's okay to grow and change. It's okay to start over. It's okay to have side gigs that finance your passion. It's so like all of these lessons that you've learned along the way, I think people can really get a message of hope and encouragement out of. And gosh, if you need a place to work out, if you want to get going on a free boot camp, I know Ashley does these once a month up at Carve. I have participated in one, and I'm not going to say it nearly killed me, but I am not coming from altitude. So it was such a blast, though. I forgot about the pain with all of the princesses around me. It was just marvelous. So yeah, you couldn't ask for a better community, and I'm so glad that you are being uplifted in Evergreen and helping the women of your community. So yeah, where can people find you, Ashley Olson?
Well, you can find me at Karve, KARVE
Mm-hmm.
fitness.co on website, Instagram, and Ashley at carvefitness.co is my email.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, follow us along on Instagram,
Yeah.
and I'll put the all that information in the show notes. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's been a thanks for wanting to listen to my story, I guess, and hopefully you've made it this far. But I hope also like you're capable of a lot more than you ever
Yeah.
think. And I haven't made it. I have not. And I was talking to a client I think the other day, and I was like, "It's the blessing and the curse of fitness journey is that you truly never make it. Like
Right.
you're
Right.
always wanting to be better. You're always wanting
Yeah.
to try to challenge yourself in a new way. And the same thing goes for business ownership. And
Yeah.
I think true entrepreneurs are always wanting to, even if it is in the same industry, like always want to make it better, always want to make sure that
Right.
you're providing a good service for people. And that just reminds me too, is like, make sure that you're always getting into this type of business for sure for the right reasons. Because this is a hard industry.
Yeah,
Medical
for sure.
health is a hard industry. And if you truly have a passion, the hard days where it seems like every single time you turn around you get a no or some blowing news, the passion and the um, drive to do what you're doing, that's gonna carry you over. So
Yeah. No, I love it. I love it. And thank you so much for opening up and sharing your life with us today. And if you have enjoyed this episode, I can't even do this spiel. Like, see, you should never turn things over to me. You should never do that because
is it time
I
to
don't
turn
even
it over?
know.
Is it time to turn it back over?
It probably is, but listen, if you need to subscribe, you need to leave a review. See, I just get bossy. That's what happens. Ashley,
Well, if you have enjoyed this episode or any of our other
there we go.
episodes,
There we go.
the biggest compliment that we can receive is a share to your family and friends or onto the social
Yep.
medias, and definitely give us a tag. So um, we'll get to this story here in the next month or two, but you can find Andrea at RM Health Partners on Instagram. And then you can find me at carvefitness.co or Ashley underscore Olson. That's OLSON underscore fitness. But we would love to give you a shout out if you tag us in a story. And
Mhm.
as always, like, if you find this episode or any of the other episodes interesting, we love to hear from you. And if you have any questions or want us to dive deeper into something, please let us know. We always are looking for feedback and ideas because at the end of the day, just like with training and with our health, it's all about you and making sure that we're serving the community properly. So with all
Yep.
of that, thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Bye. The content provided in the Double A podcast is intended for informational and educational purposes only. The podcast is not a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. The information and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not constitute medical advice.